President, please be seated. And the floor is now given to the defense for Mr. Kyusampon to put questions to the civil party. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Madam Civil Party. My name is Anta Kise. I am a co-defense lawyer for Mr. Kyusampon, and in that capacity I would like to ask you several questions. Concerning the first question that was posed by Judge Laverne, I would like to review what he brought up, the chronology. You came to Phnom Penh the 17th of April, or a bit after the 17th of April, and you were assigned to different places. You had different assignments, and you said that in Phnom Penh, you saw Kyusampon 2 times. You gave a first version indicating that the first time was at Wat Onalum, and the second time was at Bore Kela. And then a second time, yesterday at 15:03, you corrected yourself, saying that you had made a mistake, that it was in 1975, but the second time that you met him was at the Unalom Pagoda, and so that the first time was the Bore Kela Stadium. Do you confirm this, and have I understood your testimony correctly?
What do you want me to answer your question? I do not really get it.
Yes, it was a bit long, I admit. I will try to state it more concisely. You arrived on the 17th of April 1975, or a bit after that. Did I understand that correctly?
I entered Phnom Penh after 17 April 1975, a bit long after 17 April 1975. In fact, I entered Phnom Penh in April 1975, but I do not know how many days after the 17th.
No problem. April 1975 is an excellent point of departure as a reference point. So yesterday you indicated that you were correcting your first statement. Yesterday at 15:03, and I quote, you indicated when you were talking about Kyusampon, I met him the first time at the Bore Kela Stadium in 1975. I made a mistake earlier. The second time I met him was at the Unalom Pagoda, where he was chairing a conference which was aimed at youth. This was a conference that lasted the entire day, end quote. My first question, to try to orient you, is do you remember how long after your arrival in Phnom Penh you got married?
I do not recall the day, the month, and the year. I cannot recall whether it was in 1975 or 1976. As I said, I was not good at remembering the date while I was in Phnom Penh in the Khmer Rouge time.
In your first victim information form, document E3-319/54.5.8, shows this was the first form that you filled out in order to become a party to the trial, which dates from 14 October 2009. And perhaps you have some fresher memories. So you said the following, and it's the ERN 001139 644 in English. in Khmer 01049379, and there is no French translation for this section. And you talk about your arrival in 1975 to Phnom Penh, and you say the following in English.
After 6 months of working there, they arranged for me to get married to Saturn, who was then 26 years old. Fin de citation.
End quote. Does this refresh your memory about the fact that your marriage took place about 6 months after your arrival in Phnom Penh?
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President?
President, you may now proceed. Mr. Kopalas-Gyota.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an objection to this question because it seems to me that the quote that was made concerns 6 months of work at a specific place. It doesn't mean 6 months of work in Phnom Penh. Here, perhaps it's less precise than the testimony that we had or the additional information that we had. But she makes reference to the fact that she was working at the Obruse market, and the quote that the co-international lawyer had just said after 6 months of working there, they arranged for me to get married to Sauterne. That's what the co-lawyer for Kyo Sampan quoted. So she did not say that it was 6 months after arriving in Phnom Penh, but 6 months after having started at the Obruse market. And so I think the question needs to be rephrased.
Pas de souci.
There's no problem. Madam Civil Party, do you remember how much time passed between when you arrived in Phnom Penh and the time you started working at the Obruse market?
I cannot recall that.
Sans vous souvenir exactement.
Without remembering exactly, are you able to say if it was a long time after you arrived in Phnom Penh, or if it was shortly after, maybe just a week or two, a month or two after your arrival in Phnom Penh?
It was a bit long after I arrived in Phnom Penh. I was familiar with several places after I arrived at Phnom Penh when I got married. As I said, I cannot recall the exact date of my marriage.
Et quand vous dites
And when you say it was a bit long for you, what does that mean? Is it several weeks, 1 month, 2 months? Can you explain what you mean when you say a bit long?
To my recollection and assumption, after I worked and took rest in Phnom Penh for 7 months, I got married. 6 or 7 months.
donc je comprends.
So I understand from your answer that you got married 6 or 7 months after arriving in Phnom Penh, which corresponds with what you said in your previous statement, which is that you got married in 1975. Now that we have a time range that's a bit more defined, my question is, do you remember if the first time that you saw Kyo Sampan, according to your statement, which is at the Wat Unalom Pagoda, was it before or after your marriage?
It was before the marriage.
Et
And the second time, when you say you said you saw Kyo Sampan at Bore Kela Stadium at Uyum and Unim's trial, would you say that was before or after your marriage? Mr. President.
President, you may now proceed, Mr. Co-Prosecutor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no objection to the question in and of itself, but just to the wording, because shortly ago the co-international lawyer took pains to read from the witness statement where she said that she had seen Kyo Sampan first at Boracay and then at Unalam Pagoda. So this time, once again, it's been reversed. So I don't know if that was done on purpose or not. Perhaps we need to re-clarify, but in the previous question it was said the first time you saw him, therefore at Unalam Pagoda, and then the second time at Boracay. So I think that maybe we need to pay attention to this. Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry, that was an error. So I will start again. Do you remember the first time that you saw Mr. Kyo Sampan? You say that you saw him for the first time at what, Unalam? Unalam Pagoda? No. No. The co-international lawyer corrects. Boracay, the first time at Boracay Stadium. The first time you saw Kyo Sampan, was it before or after your marriage that you saw Kyo Sampan for the first time at Boracay Stadium?
I met him before the marriage. Long after that, I got married. I cannot recall how many months after that event when I got married.
Donc, est-ce que je...
So, am I mistaken if I conclude from what you said that both times that you say you saw Mr. Kyo Sampan were before your marriage? Is that correct?
That is correct. The 2 times were before my marriage.
Toujours pour essayer...
And still attempting to find a time orientation between the first time that you saw Mr. Kyo Sampan and the second time when you saw him. Can you estimate how much time passed between those 2 times that you saw him, between the first time at Boracay for Huyum and Hu Nim's trial and the second time at Unalam Pagoda? Do you remember how much time passed between those 2 events?
I cannot recall how much time passed. At the first time that I met him, I was at Psa, and the second time it was when I was already at Psa Tumpung. However, I cannot recall how much time passed in between the 2 occasions.
Je voudrais donc m'intéresser maintenant.
Therefore, I would like to turn to this first event. Judge Lebrun, His Honor, posed several questions in this regard earlier, and so I would like to add some complementary clarifying questions. My first question, at the Unalam Pagoda meeting where you said it was Huyum and Hu Nim's trial, who invited you to attend that meeting or trial?
President, you may now proceed. Lead co-lawyer for civil parties. Mr. President, I think it is a confusing question put by the counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampan. For the first meeting, Kyo Sampan mentioned about the trial, and for the second time it was about the marriage.
Oui, effectivement.
Yes. In fact, I started with an error and then I continued with it. So I will re-clarify. Your first meeting, the first time you saw Kyo Sampan, you said that it was at Boraikila, where the trial took place of Huyun and Hunim. Is that correct? Can you tell me who was the person who invited you to this event at the Bore Kela Stadium in your statement to the chamber?
I did not remember who invited me. However, in the morning on that day, I was called to board a vehicle, and I was so scared at the time. Upon my arrival, I saw other people, so I felt released. I was not informed in advance before the meeting at Boraikela.
Et à quelle unité?
Which unit were you a member of at the time of this meeting, of this summons?
I was there at Sacha transporting goods.
Qui était votre chef?
Who was your direct supervisor at that time?
My direct supervisor at Sacha was Monya.
Étiez-vous la seule de votre unité?
Were you the only one from your unit to go to that meeting?
It was only me.
Et votre chef d'unité était...
And was your chief of unit also present?
He was not there. No one went to the meeting. It was only me who was there. I was a bit frightened at first. However, upon my arrival, I saw other people. I started to feel relieved.
Dans votre...
In your unit for gathering spoils of war, did you have a particular role or function?
I was working in the group. I was simply a member of that group. He saw me firm and serious, so he would send me to any other places when he wanted.
Et votre chef...
And your supervisor, Moon, did he explain to you why you were the only one to be sent to this meeting and why he himself did not go to this meeting?
He did not say anything, and I did not ask him either. Upon the arrival of that vehicle, my name was called, and I was asked to board the vehicle. So I did not ask any reasons.
Combien de temps a duré...
How long did this meeting or trial at Bore Kela last? I have understood from your testimony this morning that you left before it ended, so perhaps I'll reword my question. How much time did you spend there?
I was in the meeting, and then the announcement was directed to the messengers to make speeches, and I was sent out. At the time, Kyo Sampon was there on the stage. I could only hear the speeches of the messengers. Then I felt a tremble, so I was sent out of the venue. I was there perhaps for 1 hour, so I left.
This first time that you saw Kyo Sampon, how did you know that it was Kyo Sampon on the podium or on the stage?
I could recognize him well.
And before this first time at Bore Kela, had you seen him before?
I had never met him before, and other people also told me that the person was Kyo Sampon, so I could recognize him. Before the time, I had never met him.
Donc, si je comprends bien votre...
If I probably understand your testimony, it is because other persons near you told you that it was Kyo Sampon that you thought that the person was indeed Kyo Sampon. Is that correct?
I understood that I was familiar with his face. In my mind, I thought he was Kyo Sampon, and the announcement was made. It was said the person was Kyo Sampon in the announcement.
Et c'était une annonce qui a été faite par qui?
And who made that announcement?
Did not know the person. There was a person who made an announcement, but did not know that person.
Et est-ce que cette personne a annoncé qu'elle...
And did that person also announce the position Kyo Sampon held at that time?
The person made an announcement that Kyo Sampon was an advisor, and I did not know what it meant by that.
C'est le seul mot que...
Was that the only word that was uttered? Advisor? And they did not say advisor in what area?
No, that was the announcement. Then the announcement was on about other topics.
J'ai compris de votre...
I understood from your testimony this morning that you did say that there were other persons who were present at that Bore Kela Stadium and who were on the podium. Were those persons also introduced?
Yes, there was an introduction of those people, but I did not know them, and I forget their names. There were other people sitting at the podium.
Sans vous souvenir...
Although you may not remember their names, were their duties announced? That is, the duties of those persons, the positions held by those persons.
do not recall that because, as I said at the time, I was unwell and I could only recall about him.
Vous êtes donc resté 1 heure dans...
So you stayed at that place for an hour. Can you clarify this issue? When you say it was at the Borikela Stadium, was it at a place outside of the stadium or it was at a place that was closed?
It was in a hall, so people attended the meeting in that hall, and it was crowded. There were soldiers there as well.
Est-ce que vous pouvez indiquer...
Can you specify where in the hall you were located? Were you at the front, in the middle, or at the back?
I was in the middle and I could see him clearly. Even when the messengers spoke, I could see them. However, after I felt unwell, I was sent to a hospital.
Et au sujet de ces...
And as regards those messengers, you no longer recall their names, is that correct?
No, I cannot recall any of their names.
Et au niveau de la configuration...
And as regards the configuration of the podium, were those messengers on the platform, that is a podium, or they were somewhere else?
They were standing at the front of the podium.
Et c'est également au niveau de l'annonce que vous avez entendu.
Was it also in the announcement that you heard that those persons were messengers of Hunim and Huyun?
Yes, they announced that the two were the messengers of Hunim and Huyun, and without such announcement, I would not have known about them.
Et est-ce que vous savez, en dehors de vous, qui est...
Apart from yourself, who was from the unit for recovering war booty, did you know where the other persons present at that meeting came from?
Participants in the event were from other areas. I did not know which units they came from. I only knew about my unit, that is the war spoils unit.
Si je comprends bien,
If I understand correctly, no announcement was made as regards the origins of the participants. Is that correct?
That is correct. There were no such announcements.
de votre déposition...
From your statement this morning, I understood that both messengers referred to the biographies of Huyun and Hunim. When you say that they refer to their biographies, can you be more specific? Can you therefore tell the Chamber what you recall?
While I was there, one of the messengers said that he mistreated the people. That's all I could understand about it. However, he spoke about other things, but I cannot recall them now.
Je voudrais maintenant me...
I would like us to talk about the second time you saw Khieu Samphan, that is at the Unalam Pagoda. Same question as the one I asked before. Who invited you to that meeting?
It was the chief at my place, that is Pan, when I was at the Tul Tumpung market. And there were people from other spearheads who attended that assembly in Unalam Pagoda. There were hundreds of people.
Et cette fois-ci, toutes les personnes de...
And on that occasion, were all the members of your unit present, or you were the only one from your unit who attended that meeting?
From each spearhead, about 10 people were instructed to attend the meeting. And as I said, the hall was full.
Est-ce que vous pouvez décrire...
Can you describe the place, the pagoda, how it was arranged?
The meeting was held at the lower level of a temple. As for the arrangement, there were chairs and tables which filled the hall. That is the hall underneath the temple. The temple was a two-story temple, and the meeting was held on the ground, or on the lower level.
Et combien d'orateurs y a-t-il eu ce jour-là? J'ai compris que...
And how many reports were presented on that day? I understood that the meeting went on for the whole day. How many people took the floor?
I do not understand when you use the Khmer word of Vietcmin. However, what happened is that he took the floor, and other people also took the floor, and since there were minority groups who were attending that one-day assembly, then so there were interpreters who would interpret his speech into the minority languages, and I seem to notice that he took the floor the most.
Et quand vous dites que d'autres personnes...
And when you say that other persons were present, do you recall whether those persons were introduced? And if you do not know their name, can you at least tell the chamber what their positions were?
Participants were chiefs from various spearheads, and him, and there was no one else.
Et votre chef, Pan?
And your chief, Tim, was therefore present, is that correct?
Yes. Pan was present, and Omon was also present at the assembly. However, they did not take the floor. They were sitting there and listened.
Je voudrais maintenant m'intéresser à un trois...
Now I would like us to talk about the third point you raised in answer to questions put to you by the co-prosecutor. You referred to your brief stay at the Sridom Pagoda at Cham Chao. I didn't quite understand under what circumstances you arrived at the Sridom Pagoda.
Cheidom. Donc, hier,
Yesterday, at the hearing, at shortly after 15 hours, 51 and 41 seconds, you stated that you fled from Samrong Tong to go to the Shaidong Pagoda. Did I properly understand your testimony? Did you flee?
I ran from Samrong Tong district because previously I was at the Slang Pagoda and the leader was arrested, and we from Slang Pagoda were removed to live in a cooperative in Samrong Tong district. And when we were there, we were split into to live in various villages, and there were 4 or 5 of us for each village. And one day, some of us disappeared from a nearby village since they were called during the night time. And later on, I heard that people kept disappearing, and we were afraid that we would be killed by the cooperatives. Then we decided to run to Jaydom Pagoda. And as I stated yesterday, that Jaydom Pagoda was under the supervision of Khieu Sampon. But when I was on the ground at the pagoda, I did not see him there. I stayed there for 2 weeks, but I did not see him. And I only heard other people who said that the pagoda was under his supervision. I remained living in the pagoda for a fortnight. Then I was transferred to Tribunal along with other people, and there were about 10 of us at the time.
Ma première question est de...
My first question is as follows. What was the kind of work done at the Chaydom Pagoda?
Some of us at Jaydom Pagoda were sent to work in the rice fields, while others were assigned to grow a vegetable. And I was amongst the group who was sent to grow vegetable in front of the pagoda.
Qui vous a indiqué que...
Who told you that that pagoda was meant for cultivating vegetables and that it was under the supervision of Khieu Samphan?
Person who was in charge in the area and who only had one arm said about this, although I cannot recall his name. And it was them who actually encouraged us to flee, because on the day of the New Year we came to visit the pagoda, and we met with those comrades, and they said that if our life over there was difficult, then we should run and join them in living in the pagoda. And we did that. We ran from Samrong Tong district, and we arrived at Jaydom Pagoda, and we left the area at 12, and by dawn we arrived.
Donc ce sont, si j'ai bien compris...
So if I understood you correctly, it was the chief of the Chaydom Pagoda who encouraged you to flee to where you were. Is that what I should understand? Was it the chief or someone else?
It was the chief who encouraged us to flee, and when we arrived there, next morning 2 messengers came to ask him whether he saw a group of about 10 women who ran away, and he actually joked with those messengers that if you found about the 10 women, how could you take them all back? And at that time, we were hiding in the house of that chief. And he actually told the messengers that he did not see any of us.
Et lorsque vous avez eu cette discussion,
And when you had that discussion before you fled, on that day, that is the New Year Day, and the chief advised you to flee, did he tell you that living conditions in that pagoda were better than they were where you were staying before?
Yes, he said that if we came to live in the pagoda, then there was no killing, and that we would be received, and that we should not feel scared. And that's why we decided to flee.
je voudrais maintenant revenir.
Now I would like us to talk about documents we have available as part of your civil party application. We have an initial form of the 14th of October 2009 and its document E319/45.4.8. And the ERN in Khmer is 01049379, and in English the ERN is 01139644. This document is dated the 14th of October 2009, and my first question is as follows. Do you recall that it was in 2009 that you filled out a form to participate in this trial?
Yes, I remember that I filled in such an application, but I cannot recall the date.
Nous avons également un.
We also have a second form. It is a supplementary information form, and this time around it is dated the 29th of June 2013. So it's the same document, E319/45.4.8, and this time the ERN in Khmer is 01049384, and the ERN in English is 01139647. There is no ERN in French. We have this document, and in it you are providing supplementary information on your biography, and is dated the 29th of June 2013. Does it remind you of anything, and do you recall that in 2013 you provided supplementary information to be tendered before this tribunal?
I cannot recall whether I made that supplementary information. I cannot recall that.
L'attention.
But, my apology, Mr. President. I'd like you to instruct the council to provide the EN number again. President, council, please provide the EN numbers again.
Pas de souci.
No problem with that. If I made an error, the Khmer is 01049384, and in English it is 01139647. And let me point out that the civil party's signature is in the following ERN in Khmer, which ends with 85. this supplementary information was provided in 2013. Then we have another supplementary information form of 28th of May 2014, and the document E3/5010A. So 5010 small a. My first question is as follows. Whereas you had provided an initial statement in 2009, a supplementary information form in 2013, why did you refer to Keo Sampan for the first time only in May 2014? That is May 2014.
I do not know how many times that I provided information. Maybe I did not mention everything during my initial application, and then I provided supplementary information later on, but I cannot recall the details.
Est-ce que, pour vous,
to your mind, at the time, the meeting with an official, someone like Keo Sampan, was that something rather rare?
It was a rare occasion. Not many leaders who would come to visit us, and only when there was a special occasion then we could see them.
donc ma question n'en est que plus importante dans ce contexte-là.
My question is all the more important in that context. Why did you not refer to that meeting with Keo Sampan, in respect of which you said he spoke and he encouraged women aged 19 and above to get married? Why did you not refer to that when you talked about your marriage in your prior statements, that is prior to 2014?
President, lead co-lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you. I regret having to interrupt my colleague. It is somewhat difficult to find ourselves in the document E319/45.4.8. That is the supplementary information form dated June 2013, which is quoted by our colleague. It's a document that was from the Office of Investigating Judges and is from case number 4. And our civil party is not part of it, but this is a sequence of documents. And some of these documents were disclosed by the OCP, and they are from case number 4, with suspects who are being investigated. I just wanted to inform the chamber of the sequence in which the different documents were provided. We have the victims information sheet for the second trial segment, and then we have the second document which was disclosed by the prosecutors as part of case 04. Then we have a document dated 2014, and it is now provided for the purposes of the second trial. I'm being told, that is counsel for the defense, I'm being told that the second document is E3/5010B, and that's the second document. My question remains the same. as part of the supplementary information that you provided, and in particular, the first victim information form you provided, why did you not talk about this particularly rare event, since you did say that you did not meet with the leaders regularly? Why was it only in May 2014 that you referred to that meeting for the first time?
I do not know what to say.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, according to my calculations, taking into account the questions put by Judge Laverne and the questions asked by Honorable Judge Fentz, we still have a few minutes after the lunch break. If you would like, I would like to end here and continue after the lunch break.
How many minutes is a few minutes?
selon mes calculs, nous avons...
According to my calculations, we have at the very least 15 minutes.
And as you may continue, counsel.
Donc vous indiquez que vous ne savez pas.
So you are indicating that you did not know the other point that I wanted to address with you, in fact, is that during this testimony you have indicated, this time for the first time in this chamber, that you had also met Ieng Sari and you had also met Pol Pot, in addition to Khieu Samphan, who you mentioned in May 2014 for the first time. So my question remains the same. Why are you talking about these meetings for the first time today in 2016 to the chamber? As you say, it is a rare event, and why did you not mention them in the first victim information that you provided?
I said about that, but I cannot recall the date of the application forms that I filled. And when I testified, I recalled what happened.
Dans votre premier format.
In your first WRI that I mentioned earlier, so ERN in Khmer 01049379, the ERN in English 01139644, and the following pages, so it's the essential summary. So in this document E319/45.4.8, you don't talk about Khieu Samphan, Ieng Sari, or Pol Pot. Moreover, in this first document, you do not talk about your interrogation in a room where weapons and tools would have been present either, and during that you were supposedly asked about your affiliations. You didn't talk about this at all. Can you tell us why you did not mention this at all the first time when you asked to be admitted as a civil party?
President, civil party, please hold on, and lead co-lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's not an objection, and I think that the civil party is capable of answering herself, but just a piece of information for the Chamber, the parties, and the public. To recall that these victim information forms are generally collected by NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They are not collected by court officers, and therefore from one NGO to another, the various questions and the content of the civil party statements can vary as well. I think the Chamber is very well informed as to the disparity that exists in these witness statements, given the various NGOs which collect them, and concerning the information that the NGOs had at their disposal when they met with the victims. I know that the Chamber is aware of all of this, and I hope that it will keep all of this in mind when listening to the response of the civil party. And I, again, think she was perfectly capable of explaining why the meetings with Kyo Sampan and the others was not mentioned in 2009 when meeting with the NGOs. This is not the first time I've heard that. I do understand it. However, most of the times when there's a problem with the victim information form, it's not of this type. It's something that was signed, in fact, by the civil party. So I think that my question is even more appropriate, because including in the supplementary information form in 2014, where we assume there is no problem of an NGO being involved, the civil party was assisted in filling out this supplementary information form, and in May 2014, the civil party did not mention Ieng Sary or Pol Pot at that time at all. So my question to you, Madam Civil Party, is why on the first form or the supplementary information form of May 2014, why in neither of those did you talk about those meetings with the other leaders of Democratic Kampuchea?
Regarding the filling of the application form, actually I filled in on a number of occasions, but I did not know who actually were responsible for each occasion, since I filled it in quite a long time ago.
The reason I am asking you these questions, Madam Civil Party, is that today and also in 2014 at the supplementary information form, you have raised many new elements. So I'm wondering about the accuracy, if we can say that, of your memories. Judge Laverne also raised a question about this. During the visit with Pol Pot, there was no escort or bodyguard, as we understood, but yesterday at 14:07 and 1 second, you said that you didn't see anyone except his bodyguards accompanying Pol Pot. So in your memories, in the successive meetings, whether it's with Ieng Sary, Pol Pot, or Kyo Sampan, do you not think that the time that passed perhaps does not allow you to have extremely clear memories and precise memories of what happened, and that it's for this reason that you didn't mention these meetings on your first witness, or first rather victim information system in 2009, which was closer to the events?
Co-prosecutor, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I think that's a very long question, and the origin of it is simply a contradiction that the co-lawyer believes she might have observed for the visit with Pol Pot. I think perhaps it could be split into several parts. for example, were there or not bodyguards with Pol Pot, to then draw a broad conclusion about the state of the memory of the one making the testimony is going a bit too far. The memory of the witness has been very clear up to this point. I think the question that the defense could have asked, since she is insisting on these forms, excuse me, Mr. President, but the question is, does she know how to read and write? This is a question that was not answered, and I think it's important to understand if the person, she didn't sign it because a signature was mentioned, but she just put her fingerprint on it. So I think that at the very beginning it would be useful to know if this person knows how to read or write, and also to separate the questions that were asked in one very long question by the defense lawyer. I think that this is a way of pleading, it's not an objection, at a time where I'm highlighting certain contradictions and asking legitimate defense questions. It's normal that as a lawyer representing Mr. Kyo Sampan that I ask questions, because a civil party who never before mentioned in her statements of 2009 the presence or meeting with Kyo Sampan, suddenly in May 2014, just after the definition of case 002/002 comes to mention her meeting with Kyo Sampan, it's very normal for me to ask questions. It's not up to the co-prosecutors or the co-lawyers for the civil party to answer the question. It's just asking, I'm just asking the civil party very coherent questions, and I don't see why today one would ask me to ask different questions than the ones that I wish to ask.
I don't think anybody is trying to prevent you from anything. I just wonder if the civil party has followed any of what happened in the last 7 or 8 minutes. So let me try to tailor it, and by all means follow up on that if you feel this is not enough. Council has pointed out that you haven't mentioned the meetings with Kyo Sampan until 2014. Now the question is, are you sure that these meetings have happened?
I did meet him on 2 occasions.
And can you give us a reason why you didn't mention that before 2014? If you can't give a reason, say I can't. If you can, please do.
I did not know who came to me with the application form. I only knew when my lawyer assisted me with the information form.
This is not the question. The question is, can you tell us why you didn't mention the visit or the encounter with Kyo Sampan before 2014?
I did not know who helped me with the application form. If I were the one who filled in, then I should have included such information, but I cannot recall who filled that in, and the only thing that I recall is I did it with my lawyer.
And do you remember today, I'm just asking, do you remember if you told your lawyer that you met Kyo Sampan? Or was this never an issue? Was this never mentioned until 2014?
In 2014, when I worked with my lawyer, I told my lawyer about it. Previously, I did not know. Maybe I have forgotten, or maybe I have said about it. I cannot say.
So the long and short, you don't know why you didn't mention it. before 2014. Is this correct? You didn't even know if you mentioned it.
Yes, I did not know whether I have mentioned it or not.
Un dernier point donc qui découle de vos
So my last point, which flows from your preceding answers, is that you indicated or you mentioned to your lawyer during your May 2014 statement, but it's only today before the chamber for this first time that you mentioned a second meeting where you allegedly saw at the Boracay Stadium Mr. Kyosampan. This also does not appear in your May 2014 statement. So once again I ask, are you sure of your memories when you're talking about these meetings? Judge Levan brought this up, and we do see that you see Hu Yun and Hu Nim's trial as having taken place in 1975, although we have in the case file two lists, and I'm looking at E3/8463, the S21 list, where in number 2 on this list the name of Hu Nim appears as having entered S21 on 10 April 1977. And we have another document from OCIJ, document E3/10604, where Hu Nim appears at number 1959 and where he's listed as being the Minister of Propaganda before his arrest. So the probability of a trial of Hu Nim before the end of 1975 appears to be not very probable. So my question, which I will repeat, are you certain that your memories are accurate and that there's not perhaps some confusion in how you're remembering the events?
I said I cannot recall for certainty whether it happened in 1975 or 76. As for the day and the month, I cannot recall it at all. And on that day, I only saw messengers, but not Hu Nim and Hu Yun.
Effectivement, j'ai bien.
So in fact, I've understood that you don't remember the date, but you said several times that these meetings took place in 1975. You placed your marriage before 1975, in 1975, and you say that your marriage was before these two events, the marriage which was in 1975. So that still poses a problem vis-à-vis the document that I've just mentioned.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President?
Monsieur Hulot.
Co-prosecutor, you have the floor.
I'm not wondering here, but I see a problem in the first document that was cited. We do not feel that this is the document where Hu Nim is at number 2. So if this is E3/8463 of S21, we find Su Sadin, and this is a list of those who were smashed on 27 May 1978. So perhaps the defense could give us the proper document number. The document I printed from Xylab is E3/8463 in French. The RN is 01302439 in Khmer. ERN 00015. And there's no French translation, so the ERN that I gave for French is actually English. So this is E3/8463 from what I printed from Xylab. This is Hu Nim. And I would like to recall that in document E3/1502, which is a FIBIS document, a communique, or a press release rather, from HUNIM on 14 April 1976 is mentioned, press release of HUNIM. So my question remains the same regarding the fact that the civil party placed these two meetings in 1975 because they were before her marriage.
Lead co-lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. An observation, just so that there's a complement to these pieces of information. When Judge Laverne questioned the civil party this morning, she said that these meetings took place at the end of 1975 or the beginning of 1976. So in the beginning of the morning, she did mention 1976. Then on the insistent questioning later in the morning, she succeeded in having replaced them in 1975. I think that everyone in this room knows that the civil party is a bit confused about the dates, not very clear on them. She did indicate that they were in 1975 or 1976, these events. Then she shortened the period, but she also indicated, for the clarity of the discussion, she also said that 1976 was a possible date for the meetings in answering Judge Laverne's questions this very morning.
Council, it is now it's a better time for the break. The chamber will take the break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon to continue our proceedings. Security personnel, you are instructed to take Kyo Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him return to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30.